In this video, I will show you how to add a new invoice, allocate it to a project, link it with a payment application, and everything else related to this process. Click on the Add New Invoice button in the top right corner. Now that we are in the invoice view, click on the Drag Files Here button to add an invoice, or just drag the invoice to the area to upload the file. Now, if the invoice is uploaded, the system automatically fills in the invoice information fields. You can view the invoice document in PDF view, RAW, and table view. Now check that the invoice is filled in correctly and shows a project where to allocate the invoice. In My Projects view, you can see all the projects that you as a user can see in Bauwise, and when clicking on Assign to a project, we can assign this invoice to a certain project. Click on the Allocate, and now we are on the Invoice Allocation view. In the header, you can see we are in the Manual Allocation section. We also have a Payment Application section where you can link invoices with related payment applications. Under Manual Allocation, you can see all the following allocation details, such as remaining allocation, allocated amount, subtotal, and advance payment. You can filter where to allocate the invoice by all, contracts, site costs, and purchase orders. There are 3 ways how you can allocate the invoice. Proportional allocation. If you click Allocate the invoice to a general works commitment, then it allocates the invoice proportionally to cost codes that are in this commitment. The second option is cost code allocation, which means that the system allocates an allocatable amount directly to a specific cost code. If the remaining allocation is 0, then the invoice amount is allocated. The third option is custom allocation, where you manually enter amounts for specific cost codes. If a required cost code is missing, you can open the contract view in the action column, add a new cost code, and allocate the invoice accordingly. And now we can see that a new cost code 1.4 is added to the contract where we can allocate the invoice. Another use case is if no relevant cost codes exist. You can create a new commitment by clicking the button at the top of the right corner, adding new cost codes, and then proceeding with the allocation. Let's create a new commitment. Click Save and Next. Now let's add cost codes to our new commitment. Click on Contract, and under Main Contract Line Items, you can see the new cost codes that we added. Now we can see a new commitment here named General Works 2, which has 2 cost codes 1.5 and 1.6, where we can allocate the invoice. Another option to allocate the invoice is by linking an invoice to a payment application. If the invoice is related to a payment application, navigate to the Payment Application section. Here we can see one payment application that is related to this invoice, and if you click on the application number, you can see the actual payment application and make sure that the payment application matches with the invoice. Select the corresponding payment application and click Link Invoice. This automatically allocates the invoice according to the linked payment application. In the table under the Choose a Project button, you can see the cost codes where the invoice was allocated, and under the Actions column, there are 3 actions which I am going to explain. If you click on the first button over here, then it opens the Invoice Allocation view where you can make adjustments. If you click on the second button, then it duplicates a cost code, and now we can see that this cost code 1.3 is duplicated, and if you want to delete a cost code, then click on the third trash can icon button. You can view the allocated cost codes by project level. Now it shows the project and cost codes the invoice was allocated, and the project and contract view where it shows the allocation by project and contract level. Now let's go to the Approvers section and add approvers to our invoice. Click here on the plus button, and from the left side, we can add new approvers. Because I am the invoice uploader, I am automatically set as one of the invoice approvers. Now let's add Jacob James to the invoice approver, and by clicking on the Remove button, the user then is removed from the approvers list. Click Done, and now we can see the added approver and that the invoice is currently in my hands. By clicking here, you can see the approver name and the points it has. Here we can see that Jacob James has 2 points, and therefore he is the final approver because of the higher point score. Now we click Assign, and the invoice is sent to him. From our side, let's confirm the allocation. We can see now that the invoice is in pending status, waiting for Jacob James' approval. Now let's go to Jacob James' environment. Let's go to Purchase Invoices, and here we can see the invoice we sent him that's waiting for his approval. Now we can see that I have already given my approval. He has the option to either confirm or decline the approval. By clicking on the decline button, he can decline from that invoice. If everything is correct, click Confirm Allocation. If confirmed, the invoice status updates to Approved, and under the Approvers column, we can see all the invoice approvers. If we go back to my account, we can see that the invoice is not highlighted anymore, and the invoice is approved by Jacob James. Now, if we go to the project in which we allocated the invoice, we can see under the actual cost column the allocated invoice, and if you click on one of the underlined numbers, you can see the invoice we uploaded to Bauwise. Now, one last thing, if you see that something did go wrong and you want to edit or delete the invoice, go back to the Purchase Invoice module, open an invoice, remove the approval so you can again make adjustments, or if you want to delete the invoice, then you can do that if you remove approval and then click on Delete Invoice button. Now we can see that the invoice has been deleted, and this wraps up the video. Thanks for listening.